star, though shining afar, it can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh.
Well, good morning again, everyone. Now it feels like we've all finally arrived, in some cases literally. Welcome to you who came in during the meditation. I don't know if you understood my comment when I said the angels have gathered. Maybe you did, but I was referring to you all. Swamiji would say that often when the choir would sing for him. If he would come to a colony like India, or he would come to Ananda village and it had been some time, and the choir would get up and sing, and he would say, "You sang like angels and you are angels." And he said, of course there is still some ego, but it's sattvic ego. And so it's something to keep in mind, both about ourselves and each other, that by the time we're seeking God, we do have ego still to overcome, certainly, but it's a sattvic ego for the most part. And I say that because sometimes we can get really excited about getting down on ourselves and saying, look at all these limitations I have, look at all these troubles I'm either in or causing. And instead to say, listen, God, all I know is I want you, and I don't want to labor myself down, weigh myself down with negative thoughts about myself, because I want to instead lift myself with positive thoughts about you, about God. And so, like I said, it's a joy to see so many of you here who we haven't seen in a little while, and it warms the heart. So, that chant that we began with, by Ram Prashad, "Will that day, O come to me, Ma." As I mentioned, Swamiji chanted that particular chant over and over and over again in his early days with Master to develop devotion. And he found it marvelous for opening his heart. I'll get into that a little bit more later. As you know, Ram Prashad was a great saint in Bengal. And there is a story that he was outside of his house working on a fence, building a fence, and he was singing one of his songs. It may have well been that song. And while he was singing, his daughter came to him. And imagine he's singing, "Will that day, O come to me, Ma," when saying, "Mother dear, my eyes will flow with tears." And so she said, who are you singing to, Daddy? And he said, "I'm singing to my Divine Mother." And he said, "But she is very naughty because she doesn't answer me." And his daughter says, "Well, if she doesn't answer you, then why do you keep singing to her?" And she laughed and she ran off. And when it was time for lunch, he stopped his work and he came inside and he shared with his wife this comment his daughter had made. And his wife said, "Well, but our daughter isn't here. She's on the other side of town with some friends." And he said, No, I just spoke to her, some time back. She said, "No, she left this morning." And that evening when his daughter came home, he said, "Weren't you here working on the fence? When I was working on the fence, weren't you talking to me?" She said, "No, Daddy, ask anyone. I was on the other side of town with my friends." And then he understood. You see, Divine Mother answers our prayers all the time. And sometimes she answers them through the channel of someone else, and sometimes in such a familiar way that we don't even notice it at first, but we feel an uplift, and only later perhaps we recognize the enormity of the blessing that we received. Even when Swami Sri Yukteswar met Babaji for the first time, as related in Autobiography of a Yogi, he just was impressed by this sort of bright light of a yogi, this sadhu who was there, who called him Swamiji, and Sri Yukteswar said, "I'm not a Swami." He was married at the time, and Babaji said, "Those who I am divinely directed to bestow the title of Swami never cast it off." And so Sri Yukteswar was elevated to Swamiship in that moment, and they talked and so on. Later, Sri Yukteswar was relating this to Lahiri Mahashaya, his own guru, and he said, "But didn't you recognize him? That was Babaji you were speaking to." And Sri Yukteswar was so shocked, and Lahiri Mahashaya said, "I see that he blocked that thought from coming to your mind, because he wanted Sri Yukteswar to appear natural, to feel relaxed, to be at ease. If we're praying to God and we're walking with God and suddenly the Vishwarupa appears to us in the middle of the office, I mean, I have such a blessing, but it won't be easy necessarily to be natural. And when you've got God standing right there, you have that story. Many of the Christian saints. In fact, there was Saint Teresa of Avila, when she became attached to a particular man who kept calling at the nunnery. This was a time when they would have male visitors, not, just in the entryway, of course, but still they would chat away and have all kinds of interactions, partly because it brought in more donations. That was part of the energy that was going then. She launched a whole reform movement against that and brought everybody back to basics, you could say. But she herself became sort of interested and attached to one particular visitor, and then Jesus appeared to the side of him. And when Jesus appeared to her, she just went and stared at him. She was transfixed, and the guy, of course, didn't notice that Jesus was next to him, and just, kept talking to her, and she just didn't respond. But Jesus said to her, "Teresa, I will introduce you to angels, not men." But again, the point here is that vision of Christ totally transfixed her. It wasn't something she could behave naturally with. So, God comes to us often in forms that we can feel at ease with. Master, one of his great... Sorry? Busing has happened. One of Master's greatest gifts, I think, in a way, in writing his autobiography of a yogi, was doing it in such a way that invites us to also join the spiritual path. He even told his own story as a seeker, visiting different saints, receiving their blessings, having these great visions, even sharing his visions, which you might think might separate him from us. I don't have those visions. I didn't have this miraculous healing. I didn't have Divine Mother answering all my wishes. Yet it's so sincere. And it's so gentle that you sort of feel like, well, but maybe I could, or maybe I will, or even if not, it makes him even more dear, not separate. And he, as Swamiji said, Master wore his wisdom like a comfortable old jacket. He didn't have to say, "I will now speak from Divine Mother," and just, level everyone. He said, even Sri Yukteswar, he said, would not say, "I prophesy that such and such will occur." He would just say, "Don't you think it may happen?" And we saw the same thing with Swamiji. All the time, he would say things like, "This might happen." And people would be like, "Okay, well, it might, but it might not." But he started to learn that when he said it might happen, it tended to happen. And it tended to be the heart of the matter, no matter what it looked like at the time. And so we are dedicating April to Swamiji because April 21st is the 1-year anniversary of his passing. And we have talked many times here in Chennai about how this is a first for Chennai that's happening this time, and this is our first visit by so-and-so, or this is our first event, or our first performance of the Festival of Light, all these things, and it's nice to have those experiences. But this is the first time any of us, anywhere, are celebrating this anniversary. And of course, celebrating it's a mixed word. It's not necessarily something that we're kicking up our heels with joy for. More, we are celebrating Swamiji's life and his gift to us. And there is a power at these times, especially right now in the beginning, when it's so early and so fresh. And we need to hang on to the blessings of this time, because 10 years from now, it will be the 10-year anniversary. And if you are one of the people who saw Swamiji in the body, people will be asking you, what was it like? And if you were there right at the beginning, just after his passing, people will be asking you, what was it like? And they will want to feel in his vibration. And so these are precious times, even though they may seem, oh yeah, Sunday and April 7th or whatever, yeah, April 6th, I mean. So it's this particular satsang, we're going to concentrate on Swamiji's early life and up to the time that he met Master and through Master's life up to 1952. And it's not going to be an extensive biography, but rather little touches of stories, little touches of inspiration. And I wanted to also mention why. Why do we do this? It isn't just that Swamiji is the founder of Ananda Sangha, and therefore because it's the founder's anniversary of his passing, so therefore we, need to trot out all these stories in history. Certainly it is that. Certainly we honor the source through which all this has come to us. But still, Swamiji's life gives us an example of a soul searching for truth, finding his guru, and attaining freedom in this lifetime. He asked Master, when will I find God? And Master said, at the end of life. And then he added, but don't think about it. And Swamiji interpreted him saying, don't think about it as, there's work to do. And Swamiji even said at a different point, if I were in Samadhi all the time, I wouldn't be able to do all this work. Partly because in at least some stages of Samadhi, you're in such bliss that you're transfixed. But the other is, it's hard to really get worked up about things when you feel that bliss inside. You say, yeah, they'll all be free. Someone else will write the books. Someone else will found the communities. The people will be fine. And so there's a story Ramakrishna told of 3 villagers who came to a high wall that they had never seen before. And they wondered what was on the other side. So the first one, put his arm like this to help the second one stand, and then the third one climbed on top of them somehow, and then saw over the wall and said, when I see, I'll tell you what it is there. And instead, when he saw it, he just said, and clapped his hands and jumped over the other side, and they waited and nothing. So then the second one said, I can you believe this nerve of this guy after we helped him? And so he said, I will tell you what's there. So then they found some stone that they could climb on top of, and then the first one helped the second one over, and then he saw it. And he also jumped over and left the first one who ended it. What is it? And nothing. And so then the last one said, well, okay, I've got to see what is on that side of this wall, the other side of this wall. And so he found like an old tree stump and was able to make some different kinds of difficult effort, was made a way for him to get over, to get to the top of the wall. And when he saw it, he saw the most beautiful garden he had ever seen. And he just yearned to just go and enjoy that garden forever. But he thought, what about everyone back at the village? They don't know this is here. Let me go back and tell them. And Ramakrishna concluded that that is what an avatar is, that he delays his final merging in God for the sake of helping others to find God. Master said, as long as one stray brother is weeping by the wayside, I will come. One stray brother. Guess what? If you're weeping by the wayside, he's coming. One is only one. You don't have to get like 3 others and weep together and then maybe you'll be worthy enough. He'll come for you. He has come for you. And so, but the same is true of Swamiji. Master said to him, of all the male disciples besides Saint Lin, his most advanced disciple, of all the men, every one has disappointed me, he said to Swamiji, and you mustn't disappoint me. And Swamiji thought, what could that mean? because he had wonderful male disciples. They were glowing and radiant, and so it couldn't have been that they disappointed him spiritually. But Swamiji said he understood that none of them had taken a personal responsibility for the work of sharing these teachings. They were content to come to their guru and receive and practice kriya and go to God, but not so much necessarily to share with others and to make sure that this message was spread all over. Master said to another one of the disciples of Swamiji, he called him Walter, perhaps after his last name, Walters, James Donald Walters. But he always called him Walter. And he said, if Walter had come sooner, we would have reached millions by now. So Swamiji had that urge, and I can't say more because we're going to see some of it, but keep that in mind also in our own lives. He tried to instill that in each one of us too, that we share what we have received in the form of, we can give books to people, we can tell people, what we're experiencing. We can also be an example, not necessarily like an example. You try it doesn't last very long. Divine Mother says, oh really? But rather to just quietly spread that peace and joy. You can even sit in a place and meditate. Feel that Master's inside of you and his aura is filling the whole room. People will feel that difference. They may not identify it with you, all the better in a way if they don't. But still, each one of us can act as a channel that way. And Swamiji did that for us. Not one of us would be here. And certainly we wouldn't be here. And I don't mean in Chennai, I mean anywhere near the spiritual path, if it weren't for Swami Kriyananda. And so we also, like I said, we offer our gratitude that way. But watching the story of his life gives us hints about our own journey, just as the story of Master's life also resonated with us, different parts of it, in drawing us closer to God. So we have one interesting thing about this, is that Swamiji's father had a video camera, not a video camera, but a film camera back in 1930. And so Swamiji was 4 years old at that time. And so he took home movies, like many of us do, but he took them from 1930 onward. I mean, again, 1930, what is 80 years ago? No, 84 years ago. And so even though we can show you a lot of pictures of Swamiji's life too, I thought it would be fun to also instead see some videos, some short films that way. So this is Romania, where Swamiji grew up. He was actually born in Romania. He was an American, but his parents were in Romania. And this is what Romania looked like at that time. This was a few years later than when Swamiji was born, but still, it didn't change much in those years, and hasn't necessarily took many years before it changed at all. An interesting thing about Romania is that it is sort of in between the East and the West. And Swamiji's whole life, he said, was a bit of that, bridging this gap. The other thing he pointed out was, though an American, he was born in a foreign country, and so much of his life was about traveling the planet. And he said also, to some extent, feeling a bit like an outsider wherever he went. Romania was his home, but he wasn't Romanian. When he came back to America, I'll get into that story a little bit later. But he always felt a bit apart, and he's not the only one who feels that way. This is Swamiji's father here in the middle with the hat and with the notebook under his arm, and because you'll see him in different shots. He was an oil geologist for the company that is now called Exxon. In that time it was called Esso, and he was stationed in Romania he was the chief geologist for the company at that time. And so his major work was basically finding oil taking all the data, working with all the team. These are oil fields, and saying this is where oil is. And I don't know about the specific work he did in Romania, but I know that in France he found oil, and they actually awarded him the Legion of Honor in France for his discovery of oil there. And so Swamiji grew up in a little company compound, you could say. It was a little village, but it was basically an American village for those employees of the company, because there was such a big production. It would be nice to go there and see it. Unfortunately, in the war, the whole place was bombed and devastated. So there's no more remains of this little village or the oil fields or anything left there now. But it was an idyllic place. You'll see in the videos, this is Swamiji here, and on the right is his brother Bob, and this is their father, whose name was Ray. And so
one thing that is interesting about Swamiji, he said from the time he was very young, he felt unchanged. He felt the same at the end of his life as he felt in the beginning of his life, which is very much a sign of a free soul who's been born.
And you can even see that in his eyes in these films. It was easy in all of these, watching these films. I was working with a group of people who were digitizing these films and then presenting them, and it was which one is Swamiji? I mean, it's not like we grew up with the family so we knew everything, and even though there were notes, it was easy to tell, even in a big group, because you just looked in the eyes, and he always had that dignity and poise. He said, I felt like I arrived into this life fully myself. He writes that in The New Path. And so, this is his Swamiji looking at the camera here, and he, well, I'll just let the film play. It's so sweet. Swamiji said that he felt, for example, when he was falling asleep, he would see lights and he would feel a lot of peace, and he would have different kinds of experiences that way. He also, his mother had a mirror, a hand mirror that had a beveled edge that when it caught the sunlight would make like a prism, like a rainbow pattern. And he said he would just gaze into that rainbow pattern and feel himself living in a land of different colored lights and so on, which of course is reminiscent of the astral world. And in fact, he said, I have felt more at home in the astral world than in this world. And so, again, he may not be alone in that sentiment. Among his band of friends, he was always the leader. They followed him in terms of he would create different games for them all to play, and his brother Bob was very competitive with him, but he said, I was determined to maintain my place as the eldest brother. And so this is a little sweet how Bob tries out the seesaw here. But you can see in a certain way what a happy childhood he had, and he really did have these early years. And I'll talk a little bit about Swamiji's mother a little bit later, but he felt that in a way he came into this life for her, meaning that she was the one he had the deepest connection with. And then he said, and the others came with her. But it was her that he had come for. And so, as I said, he was always the leader. Okay. So, Swamiji had another brother who was born after the scenes that you saw here, a brother named Dick, a youngest brother. And this is them on a ship, because Swamiji, from every 3 years or so, they would travel back to America. And he took his first voyage on a ship at the age of 6 months, and then continued regularly. And so that traveling was something he did his whole life. He was always traveling. He's seen probably more of the world than most people. And there it is, over the edge of the ship there. So, I wanted to pause that there. The community was very happy. There were so many children in this. Swamiji's right here. This was his brother's birthday, and his father loved to turn on the camera and then tell the kids, okay, jump, okay, come to me, and so on. And Swamiji was very gentle as a child also, and both outwardly and inwardly. But about this time in his life, he became ill, and then his whole life changed. It was decided that because of this illness that he had, that he should go to Switzerland for the air there and the climate, the healing climate there. So he went off to a boarding school at a very young age. Maybe it was age 10, I'm not sure. And he was intensely lonely. And just like in Master's life, when Master lost his mother, that was such a painful chapter that in a human way set the course of his life forever to then seek Divine Mother. Of course, he arrived already as an avatar. Swamiji too said, I arrived fully myself, not as an avatar, but with that sense of inner freedom. And yet, he had this same jarring note, having this very happy childhood and friends and family and everything. He then went to Switzerland, and from then on he went to boarding school after boarding school after boarding school until his last year of high school, until 12th standard. He was away from home, and it was very painful for him. He was homesick. He was trying to make friends and learn the language in some cases of wherever he went. It gave him a great broad experience, and it also helped him with his, it certainly detached him from his family. But, again, he was very lonely, and that haunted him. It also made him philosophical. And again, I don't mean that these experiences formed Swamiji. I think he came in already formed. But we all have to play out these dramas, if nothing else, so that others can understand and relate to them. And so you can see it a little bit in his eyes, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, he's with his family here. But he's now 14. This is his 14th birthday. This is his mother here. And this is Swamiji here. And he was interested in, okay, we'll stop there. He was writing, he said, I always loved mathematics, especially in college, but the class was too early in the morning. And in other classes he would read books of poetry. He loved poetry. He was also rebellious because he was extremely intelligent, and he was not impressed with some of the curriculum. He was just being fed in this sort of standard way. And so this is him at about the age of probably 18 or 19, so very close to when he came to Master. And he was now back at home, and he had his, he was probably already graduated from high school at this point, but, let me go back there. He also, to try to overcome his loneliness, as he writes in The New Path, in his last year of high school, he had always been an outsider. And so he took an advantage of coming to this new school. I should backtrack a little bit. He was in school in England, which was a school he absolutely loved. It was called the Down School. And it was just heaven in terms of his relationship with the teachers, his relationship with the other students. They got 2 grades in every subject. One was their actual outward mastery of the subject, and the other they got a color for how much individual effort they had put out, regardless of what their achievement had been. And that mattered because you could do really well and do it lazily, or you could do really mediocre, but it took every ounce of strength. He said they pushed so hard to get the best color, even more than they cared about the number or the ABCD. It was a perfect school for him, and in a certain way it brought him that peace and comfort that he hadn't had. And that his last year he was to be there, he was going to be head boy of the school and all these things, and then the war broke out. And so they couldn't return to England. And so they had just come to America, and when the news came. And so he then, in America, he was speaking in America with a British accent, because that was what he had developed in England. And he said, I've never quite been able to master the American accent. And he's always had his own unique way of speaking. I don't hear an accent, but people tell me, that they can hear that. And he said England has always been a part of him. And there's past life connections there too, but we'll leave those aside for now. But here he was back in America, his own home, his American passport, and people harassed him all the time for what is this British accent and true blue and all these things, and what are you talking like this for, and so on. And so then similarly throughout high school he had difficulty. He couldn't relate to the Americans' interests and being rough and tough and important and proud and all, not refined, just, that's all, fluffy stuff. We want real. He just said, I couldn't relate to that in the kids my age. His parents were very refined, as I said. His mother was very saintly even. But his last year of high school, which is around the time or just before this shot here, he decided, okay, I will plunge completely into popular culture. I will completely mix with everyone. I'll listen to jazz and each week find out what the new hit song is and learn all the dances. And he did. He became immensely popular. And so, but he called that basically the popularity game. And he called it a paper rest house, meaning, you can imagine being in a house of paper, how much it would hold up to any kind of wind or rain or anything. And so even though on one level he felt himself enjoying the superficialness of that and the frivolousness of it, it was helpful. Still, he thought, even this that everyone is after, it doesn't feed my soul. And so he was questing, and he was troubled about in his quest. This is his mother in her later years. This is when Swamiji saw this particular shot of her in these films, he just said, how beautiful, lovely. It really struck him to see his mother again like this. She was a very saintly person, and everyone who met her also was impressed by her. She was very refined also. And as I already mentioned, Swamiji said he felt like he came for his mother. And his mother, when pregnant with him, said, Lord, this first child I give to you. And so this is Swamiji now in 1948. Oops. So this is probably months before he found Autobiography of a Yogi. So when next time you read that story or hear that story, this is what he looked like at that time. And his mother was very worried about him because he had he left college with just one semester left. He asked his parents permission to leave, and they granted it. But he was at Brown University at that point. He just wasn't finding what he wanted. He ended up going into the trying to find it in nature, trying to find it among simple country folk, trying to find the real reality. And he got several excerpts. He found on his mother's shelf when he was back at home something called the Short World Bible, which had excerpts from every religion. And when he read the Buddhist teachings, they intrigued him because they were very different. He didn't have any religious exposure, really, in that sense, to the Eastern teachings. But when he read the excerpts from the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, he just absolutely loved it. I can't say more because we're going to hear from Swamiji in a moment. He's going to tell the rest of the story. But his I don't know what he tells, so I don't want to tell it, so I'll just show this part. And that's his father. And again, his brother Bob.
Just an aside also, which Swamiji probably mentions when he talks, a few things. One is, his father was never for him joining the spiritual path. So in a way, Swamiji has helped us all who have ever encountered any family resistance to sticking to the path. And even though his father didn't want him to do this, instead his father, of course, wanted him to be a successful businessman, it was completely against Swamiji's nature. So he really had to hold on to being who he was in this life, and really knowing himself and having that ability, especially in the 40s when culture was so strong in conforming a specific way in life. And he really broke out of that culture and joined the monastery at that time. Another little aside about this is Dharmarajan and I came upon these movies because we were doing research. Nayaswami Shivani had asked us to do research on Swamiji's life for the movie. And the movie at that time did not have a final script, or it was some other script that finally, it went through a lot of iterations. So we were involved with that movie early on. And so we did a lot of research on Swamiji, and we met with his brother's wife, who lived only 2 hours away from Ananda village when we were living there. And so we went to her house. She and her husband was at work, so we didn't spend much time with him. But she brought out all these scrapbooks of photos, photo after photo. And so we scanned them all. Any photo that had Swamiji and his family, we just scanned all the photos at high resolution, so we have them. And then also Swamiji's brother's son had the family movies. And his brother, Swamiji's brother, that was the brother of this wife, was not against Swamiji being on the spiritual path, but he didn't relate to it. But it was very sweet, though, that they were willing to cooperate. And then the son of, is it the son of this? Okay, so this couple's son, Swamiji's nephew, he had the family photos, and he was very much a friend of Swamiji. Movies. So he sent the movies to us in Los Angeles, when we were in Los Angeles.
They ended up in Los Angeles.
He sent them to Los Angeles, and we took them to a place where they were copied, and then he had to send them back. But it was a very sweet thing to connect with Swamiji's family in this way. Other people who had been on the path now 50 years or whatever, we've just been on the path 25 years. But when we arrived, everyone, that were teachers had been on the path for 25 years. And so they had all met Swamiji's mother when she was alive. They got to visit her. They got to see what a saint she was, what a beautiful soul she was. They got to meet his father. They got to meet his... So when we were able to then go and meet with his brother and his why it was very sweet to be able to go over the pictures and see the beautiful saintly face of Swamiji's mother, and she prayed to God when she was pregnant and said, "This one is yours." And so she knew that he was a special soul that had come. So it's just nice to kind of hear the backstories of how these come, because you think, oh, well, Ananda has always had these things, and we've been giving this kind of a talk for ages, but really, we've only had these films for a few years, and it's such a blessing to have them. We got them while Swamiji was in his body, and so this compilation, this film, was shown to Swamiji with a group of people, and he was just so, in bliss watching the whole thing, just enjoying the movie fully about this.
And this is the first time we've ever given this talk. So it's not something that has happened all the time. It's the first time. And so, and even when people knew Swamiji then, no one had seen these videos, films, because they were on 16 millimeter, big reels, of course, which actually endure the test, the ravages of time extremely well. But then they were taken to a professional movie place to then be digitized. And you've seen shots of them in Finding Happiness. You may have noticed when she starts to talk about Swamiji, you'll see that shot of him walking up the street. It came from these films. So I want to pause here now and have Swamiji tell the next chapter in his life. And this is from his talk in Chennai. So some of you may remember this vividly.
Swami Kriyananda said it beautifully. He said it's not a good thing to be born into a religion, but it's a misfortune to die in one. He said that we need to grow beyond definitions. I grew up in a Christian church, and I found that their definition of God was utterly uninteresting, and I didn't want God because of that. I tried to find truth. My whole life was dedicated to seeking truth. And I thought it through science, I thought it through political systems, I thought it through inspiration in the arts. I thought it through every way I could imagine without God. I didn't seek it through money because I'd been born into that and I didn't like it. But I found that every road was a dead end. And finally I remember taking a long walk out into the night. And I said, there has to be a God. But if there's a God, what must he be? And my first thought was, well, he can't be a judge up there waiting for me to make a mistake to throw me into hell. No, what is making me ask this question? The fact that I am conscious. And if I am conscious, he must be consciousness.
Could you take over the camera?
And if that is true, then my duty in this world is to open myself to that consciousness. And I remember coming back, I was living in an apartment with 4 other young men, and I was absolutely staggered. And I decided then my duty in life has to be to find God. I didn't know anything about Indian teaching. I didn't know anything about India. I didn't know anything about yoga. As far as I knew, it might be some kind of yogurt. I decided I would go to a Brazilian jungle and become a hermit and seek God. And I thought maybe if I found God, I would at least have peace of mind. I would at least have greater awareness. But at this time in my life, people wonder, does God really listen to us? He listened to me. I didn't know how to pray to him. I didn't know anything. But God listened to my prayer anyway. He sent my father to a foreign country. The day I put my mother on the ship to go join my father, I went uptown New York, and I found in a bookstore Autobiography of a Yogi. This was in 1948. I was only 22 years old. And I read that book and I found what joy you can find in knowing God, what bliss you can find in knowing God. I was just, I tell you, absolutely overwhelmed. And I took the next bus from New York to Los Angeles. And when I met Yogananda, the first words I said to him were, I want to be your disciple. I would never have said that to anybody. I never dreamed of saying it. But in him I found someone who I knew I could trust. I knew he could guide me in a way that I had not been able to guide myself before.
And so Swamiji then was with Master, and this is 1952. I think it might be 1951. Master had Swamiji grow a beard because he was lecturing in public, and they wanted him to look, Master perhaps wanted him to look a little older than he did. This is the SRF Lake Shrine that was only 1 or 2 years old at that time. And it was Master called it in a certain sense the crown jewel of all of his different temples that he had in America. And it was a natural, it was a lake that was formed. It was originally created to be a movie set, and then long ago. And then the man who had the property gave it to Master. Here's Swamiji here. He was a Acharya. It was called a minister in America, but we would call him an Acharya here. Master had him teaching from just after being 8 months with him. And so this is the same clips again one more time. Remember that structure there for the pictures that follow. So, oops. I mentioned Swamiji's beard already, and let me not have it do that. Sorry about that. Let me just. Okay. Looks like I can't. Okay. So we don't have as many photos of Swamiji with Master. So these are the ones that we do. This was Christmas, and this is Master's most advanced disciple, Rajarshi Janakananda, here. And Dr. Lewis, who is his first disciple in America, Dr. Lewis's wife, Mrs. Lewis, Swamiji there. And Swamiji immediately, Master brought him in, and as you may all know the story, Swamiji was supposed to speak Master was supposed to speak in San Diego Church, which is about maybe an hour or two from Los Angeles. And he hadn't been there in a long time, and so the crowd was, told every week, look in the newspaper, see if the announcement has come. And finally the announcement came. Yogananda will be coming to San Diego. And Swami, the day before, Swami got news actually from this man Bernard, not that you can see him well, who said, Master wants you to go instead. And so Swamiji had to address, for the first time, he'd never spoken in public before. And then Bernard said, and he wants you to give a kriya initiation also. And Swami said, I'd only attended one initiation, my own. And so Master just launched him into this life. One reason I think perhaps could be that Master only had 3.5 years left on earth, and so he needed Swamiji to get moving. But he also said that I only appoint those as teachers and ministers who have sufficiently good karma from the past. And it's just the way he put it. So he saw Swamiji not as a 22-year-old, but as his soul and as he was. And that's interesting to mention because Swamiji too, when he brought a group to Italy and they were starting the first community in Italy, Swamiji said, when in the morning he would open the door and say, "Good morning, great souls." And Devi said she, because they were sort of sleeping in sleeping bags in this, she'd look around and think, who are all the great souls who must have arrived or must be sitting in the back? And there was no one. And then she slowly dawned on her, he was talking to them. He saw everybody in their highest potential. That's one reason why people felt so drawn to him, because they felt uplifted by his vision for them of what they were becoming. And so it's something also we should all try to do, not to see someone's current state of whatever, but to see them as a free soul struggling, or a soul struggling towards its final freedom. So Swamiji was a part of the monks here. You can see the back of him here. And very soon Master made him the head of the monks. And so he worked towards helping them gather more for group meditations and have more of a inward life. They had been sort of more on their own before then. So Swamiji's here in the back looking at Master. And this is the photo that Master, when the photographer came, Master said, wait, before you take the picture, let me go into Samadhi first. All right. Meaning that was the mental control that he had. That's as long as it would take him. This is a picture you may all well relate to on one level. Swamiji teaching the energization exercises. This was in a parking lot outside the Hollywood church. And you can't necessarily see him too well. Swamiji's here, standing on the back of the pickup truck demonstrating for everyone to follow. And this was a groundbreaking ceremony for a new building they were going to put on the property. And this was done on Master's birthday in 1952, the year that he left his body. This is going back in time slightly. Remember I told you that I said, remember this structure at the lake shrine. This was at the dedication of the lake shrine. Swamiji was leading. He always led the yoga postures, even if there was a group. He was the main one leading them. He was not necessarily good at the postures at first, and Master said, can you please demonstrate them for this guest? And he thought, okay. And he suddenly found he could do them all perfectly, effortlessly. Master had just reawakened that in him or given him that blessing. This is later in that dedication, and the arches are just over them. And Swamiji's right here. And it's too bad the way this is zooming in, because I don't want it to zoom that way. Well, this is Master here, and I'll see if this thing does what it's supposed to do. Right behind him, this is Swamiji here with his back to the camera. And this was Master's last birthday. We have a recording of that talk, and some of you may have heard it. And this is what it looked like. Master in bliss, and Swamiji and the other monks serving everyone. This is right before Master left his body. And this is perhaps the last photo of Swamiji with Master, giving him a gift of singhariyas, which are they're like Bengali samosas, I think. And we've always been touched that this was this last photo, because Swamiji, offering this gift, really we feel in a way that, we're all inside this little box. And Ananda is that little box, that everything that Swamiji has done, he's only done as a channel for Master. And in a way we feel very clearly that we lived with Master because we lived with Swamiji. And Swamiji did nothing of his own to say, okay, this is what I think how it should be done, or this is what, even though Master did it this way, let's change it. Like we had that experience with some of you. We played recordings of Master leading a prayer, leading a meditation, doing a closing prayer, chanting Om, just like we do it. And it's not that he does it like us, it's that we do it like him. But we only do it like him because Swamiji passed on that living link. And so that's what we're doing now, and we'll continue forward. And so in the next satsangs, we'll carry on from here. So, God bless you.